Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. I'm Kelly Bass, your host, and I've been an active participant in the Central Arkansas food scene for decades. First as a reporter and reviewer for two Little Rock-based newspapers, and then a couple of area magazines. And now, I'm a podcaster. Those of you who have heard this podcast before have heard me also thank Benny Keith Foods for the opportunity to visit with some of the top chefs and restaurateurs across the Mid-South on this Heaping Spoonful podcast, something I have really come to enjoy more than writing about the food scene that I did for so long. But while I was technically thanking a company, Benny Keith, in fact, I was thanking a single individual, Rusty Mathis, who just happens to be today's guest. In the summer of 2019, Rusty came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a podcast. I want to call it Heaping Spoonful, and would you like to be the host?" And obviously, I said yes, because we've been doing this thing for more than 4 years, but you know, I didn't just do it because I knew it would be fun and I'd get to spend time with some amazing chefs and restaurant owners and growers and all kinds of cool people, but because it was Rusty asking me. You see, Rusty Mathis and I, in this year, 2024, and that year has just dawned, became friends 40 years ago, in 1984, and it's safe to say we're going to be close buddies until the day one of us exits this earth, which both of us hope is a long time in the future. So thanks for everything, Rusty. Thanks for your decades-long friendship. Thanks for coming up with the Heaping Spoonful concept. Thanks for coming up with the Heaping Spoonful name. And thanks for helping build Benny Keith Foods Mid-South division into a place where people want to work and with whom people want to partner.
You're welcome. And it's good to be with you, Kelly.
Yeah, well,
as always. And this is a little different environment than our norm.
Yes, it very much is. We've done a lot of hanging around on your porch and at your lake house and at rock and roll shows and at country shows and, gosh, in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and all sorts of places. But we'll dig a little deeper into your past and our past in a bit. But first things first, how did you decide that creating a podcast featuring your company's clients? But I will say, and to your credit, not only your clients. We've had folks here who are, you know, bloggers and food journalists and other folks, and some folks that aren't necessarily even Benny Keith customers. So how did you decide that doing this podcast was a good thing to do?
Well, I think, you know, people have really gotten interested in the food business with, you know, the advent of the Food Network and things like that. I've been in this career pretty much my whole life. And I was in food service back before food service was cool.
Yeah.
But people started enjoying learning about it. And I thought, man, we got some great stories around our distribution area, and people ought to know about it. And then it would be a good way for us to showcase our customers and their stories. And as you've said in the past, worldwide, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And it's been really neat. I mean, I look back at the ones we've done and think about a woman like Karen Carrier, who's got all these cool spots in Memphis, including the beauty shop. And, I mean, she used to work for a catering company, and they catered video shoots for The Clash in the early days of MTV. I mean, how cool is that? You know, John Currents, who's not just, we've had several folks that have been James Beard chef nominees. We've had one who's been an actual Heritage Award winner, but he's an award winner. But he came up with so many cool concepts and has really defined the Oxford, Mississippi scene. And then also, you know, his Big Bad Breakfast concept is now, thankfully for us, and our friend Ben Brainer's got a couple of them here in Little Rock. So yeah, it's really is cool. And, you know, that I would say that sort of publicity and the chance for people to tell their story and their restaurant stories, just one more thing I'd call value add, in quotes I'm doing with my fingers. I know you can't see me, that Benny Keith provides. Another obvious one is the services of Shane Henderson, your executive chef, who, you know, he works with your clients in so many ways. Are there other things that you all do for your customers that you'd consider kind of value add, things you do beyond bringing food to their door?
Sure. And I think in this day and time you have to. And we have a portfolio of services that we call Host, and they include multiple things and often managed through third-party sources. But One is our culinary resource team, which is Shane Henderson and other chefs across the distribution center. But then we have restaurant management software. We have design solutions, uniforms, marketing, menu profitability, serve safe training, just a number of things that we do that hopefully bring some value to our customers as they manage through their restaurant solutions.
Yeah, that's definitely a differentiator, and and again that really kind of ties back to my next theme, which is service, because you got to do something beyond just bringing them food, and you all obviously do, because I mean a can of green beans is a can of green beans, and so your service that you sell, and I've been around, and watched and participated, but I just remember walking when we lived in downtown Little Rock, walking over to Dugan's Pub and for St. Patrick's Day weekend, and there was a Benny Keith truck out there. I was like, well, are they delivering food on St. Patrick's Day weekend? Well, no, you were providing a refrigerated truck for those guys to keep beer and food and other things. I mean, that's just sort of the kind of things you do. And I've also been where you just had lunch at Reduno in downtown Little Rock and seen Tom Pangburn walk in with a bunch of, with an armful of stuff that they needed. And it's just like, hey, we're here to serve. And so, yeah, I guess service is really another differentiator beyond just the foods that you sell.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what we pride ourselves on. I think that's what we think we do better than everyone else.
And also, I again, having known you and been involved with your company for a long time, that sometimes you all carry products that maybe some of the even bigger, although you guys are big, some of the even bigger food service companies don't, like particular sorts of products that specialty products. I guess that's a delicate balance, though, because you only got so much warehouse room, so much truck room, but you all do try to provide items that might not be the same thing they could get at the other spots.
Yeah, and really our product offerings are really one of the main things we consider our competitive advantage. In this day and time, there used to be a lot of small food service distributors, many of them. And way back in the day, there was a coffee guy and a grocery person and a frozen person, a chicken person, and all that. And now there's just several really large companies, and many of them are publicly owned companies. We're still a family-owned business, and that gives us that ability to pick those unique products, to deal with those unique vendors. We do a lot of business with local providers, and so that really is something that we think gives us a real competitive advantage, is to have those unique. And oftentimes we have, higher-end products, maybe more than most others have. So very, very proud of our inventory offerings.
Yeah, and again, you're talking about being family-owned, which means that, and again, when I'm standing in your beautiful facility here in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and I look at the plaque when you guys opened in 2018, and the name Hallam is on there a lot because the Hallams descended directly from Benny Keith. And but again, if the Hallams say it's okay, then it's okay. That doesn't take shareholders or anybody like that, right? I mean, you've got a direct line to the top of the company, and I guess when you want to do something, even as crazy as having a podcast, all you got to make happy is them.
That's right.
Yeah, that is really neat. When I think, of course, my experience and most listeners' experience are eating in restaurants, and restaurants clearly are where we encounter Benny Keith trucks and where we encounter Benny Keith foods. And I see your, from your sugar packets to all those other things, but there's a lot of other institutions beyond restaurants that serve food. Just to bring our listeners up to speed on kind of your business, what are some of the large categories of institutions that Benny Keith serves?
Well, there's healthcare, long-term care, nursing homes, retirement centers, short-term care hospitals, things like that. Education, anything from schools, public schools, to universities, and then with universities goes into fraternity houses, sorority houses. Yeah. There's corrections, there's prisons and jails, and
sure.
People confuse us sometimes with retail business, grocery stores and stuff. We're food service, and the best way to kind of tell the difference is we're going to provide very large quantities that you're going to cook in large quantities. So all of our stuff comes in really big cans and,
right.
and volumes. So.
Yeah, and you all have had the privilege for many years of providing, if not all, at least almost all of the things that are used at Sonic. And so
Right.
the food, the cups, the straws, whatever. And I remember,
The syrups for the drinks.
yeah, the syrup for the drinks, and everybody wants their half price happy hour, big gulp or whatever they call them there. I remember that. I think that's a convenience store, actually. Sorry. Route 44, Route 40. Yeah,
that's
okay,
it.
sorry, getting my terminology wrong. But I remember when you all were not yet in your new facility and you were in two facilities, you took me over one time to the older and walked into a warehouse with Sonic cups. And man, it is almost like surreal out of a movie, because cups don't weigh a lot, but you got to have a lot of them. And remember that? You have a whole wall of them. You still do it. It's just now here.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is really crazy. So anyway, I'm getting off track a little bit, but another thing I've admired again about your company is, again, great products, great services, and we've talked about some of the things you all do that make clients, and whether that's schools or restaurants or whatever, want to work with you, but you also need things that make people want to work for you. And, you've really focused on building a great team here. You have I think a very admirable culture that make people want to work here. And once they come here, they want to stay here. From truck rodeos to, what are some of the things you all do besides pay and benefits that you all do to try to make this a cool place to work?
Yeah, so that goes back to our ownership, to the Hallam family, and that they realize that our most valuable resource is still the human resource. And I think a lot of companies these days don't understand that. Right. So if we don't have the best people to take care of our customers, which are also the best people, but we've got to start with our people or nothing else happens. So we embrace our people. We do have a great benefit package, but we treat them well, and we recognize them a lot. So we do. We have awards banquets for sales and operations and different celebrations, and we do things out on the lawn and, a football frenzy that our HR manager puts together. But just engage with them and celebrate them, listen to them, and create a good workplace for them. And we've been very successful with that. But that's the culture that does come down from the ownership of the company, and it's been real easy to take that down through our division here.
Yeah, which is just great, and I appreciate their support for all that you do for folks, because it really is important. Well, listen, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful with our guest Rusty Mathis, the general manager of Benny Keith Mid-South Division. And during the break, you're in for a treat. See if you recognize the voice that you're about to hear. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, after hearing from Rusty Mathis, let's once again hear from Rusty Mathis as we look back even longer than you and I have been friends. So let's talk a little bit, Rusty, about your career progression that prepared you for this job as general manager at a Benny Keith Foods division outlet. So you went from high school in Northeast Arkansas, Monette?
And Leachville.
And Leachville. Or is that like a metroplex?
They really are. I don't know. One's the suburb of the other, and I haven't figured out which one.
Which one had the high school?
Both, which is now one.
Okay.
But there were two.
Which one did you go to?
Both.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Both. Well, anyway, which one did you graduate?
Leachville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it turns out, I worked with a fabulous human being named Stephen Steed at the Arkansas Gazette, who was also a Leachville High graduate, I believe in your same class.
My classmate.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that crazy? And you went straight from there to the resort town of Hot Springs, Arkansas. So why Hot Springs? Why was that attractive to you, and what did you do when you first got there as an 18-year-old, or maybe even a 17-year-old?
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
both.
you graduated
both
at
of those
17.
two. Yeah. So my grandmother had lived there for many, many years, and I'd visited there during the summers. And my folks had bought a mobile home that they were eventually going to retire in, and they weren't ready to retire there yet. So it was kind of basically a free place for me to stay. And Leachville, Monette didn't have a lot of career opportunities for me, and at that time I wasn't ready to go to college or smart enough not to go to college with what I had going on, and so went to work for the Holiday Inn Lake Hamilton as a bellman, and just the general manager there recognized something in me and basically kind of helped teach me the hospitality business and elevated me through the hotel quite quickly. So, and that was right. I mean, that's a nice hotel. I mean, it was right there, it's a double tree now there.
Yeah, there on Lake Hamilton. Mm-hmm. And so, bellman to desk to
director of sales, assistant general manager, and then I was able to open my first Holiday Inn at the ripe old age of 22.
Wow.
The Holiday Inn in Camden, which was brand new.
Okay, and you were the general manager at age 22.
Yes.
And you knew everything about everything.
I knew everything.
But you found your way back to Hot Springs. Did you go from that hotel in Camden back to Hot Springs?
Kind of, sort of, yes, in a roundabout way. Again, at 22, I did figure out at 22 that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew.
Yeah.
And that I might have been a little over my head. So I went back to Hot Springs, and a lady that I'd known before, Pam Hill, was the general manager of the Sawmill Depot restaurant, which is one of the coolest places that ever existed on earth, with a great restaurant, bar, music scene, and that sort of thing. And she hired me, and I worked for her as bartender, wait staff, MOD at times, and did that for a little while. And that wasn't going to be a permanent career necessarily. And I had an opportunity, I'll make this brief, but I had an opportunity to go manage a hotel down in Texarkana, the Executive Inn, and went down there for several months. And then Pam called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to go open my own restaurant. Would you want to come back to Hot Springs and take over the Sawmill Depot as the general manager?" And I said, "Yes, I would." So that was, I want to say, sometime in the second half of 1984.
Yeah, and that is when I met you, because
Exactly.
I was writing, covering the entertainment beat for the Arkansas Gazette in Little Rock, and so I had gotten to know, when going to college in Memphis, a musician named Keith Sykes, who played around Memphis a lot and signed a big national recording contract, and he was featured on Saturday Night Live, and he was a big old deal. And I got a call from his publicist, also known as his wife, Jareen, when I was at the Gazette, saying, "Hey, we're going to come down to Hot Springs and play at this cool place. It's called the Sawmill Depot." So that was an occasion of great importance that led me to come to Hot Springs and enjoy Keith's music and the hospitality afforded me by the establishment's general manager, one Rusty Mathis Esquire. So music, long before you started working in managing a restaurant bar that featured music, it's a big part of your life too. You grew up in Northeast Arkansas. You weren't far from Memphis. You spent a year in Tulsa. When you were in high school, you got to go see some shows, even though you weren't old enough, at Kane's Ballroom, the legendary place. But you also just love music, and I've enjoyed tooling around on your boat, listening to your just basically listen to your phone and what you got on it. But was being able to feature that singer-songwriter type music at the Sawmill something that was particularly attractive to you?
Yeah, I think that was probably as much or more of the draw than the food scene was, quite honestly. I'd been in the hotel business. We had restaurants and had convention business stuff, but I never really worked on a cook line, or, I never was a cook or anything like that. I was always just in management. So I honestly I probably knew more about the music scene than I knew about the food business at that time.
Right. So again, the Sawmill was again one of the coolest places, and one of your most, I don't know if notorious might not be a fair word, but one of your loyal customers was Virginia Kelly, who is
yes,
Bill Clinton's mother. And in fact, when they did an exhibit on the two, Hillary's mother and Bill's mother at the Clinton Presidential Center, they had kind of one of those Q&A things, and they said, "What's your favorite restaurant?" And she said, "Sawmill Depot in Hot Springs." So that's really cool. But again, opportunity knocked. Where did you go from there? Because at some point you got out of the restaurant and hotel business into the food service business. Is that when that happened?
Yeah, so I had been there at the sawmill for about 3 years, and I would have food service distribution sales reps call on me, and they were like, and I people that know me know that I may talk too much at times, and I talked a lot, and they're like, you ought to be doing this, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. This is a pretty cool gig here, and I started building a family, and I had 2 small children, and I found out what the work schedule and what the lifestyle of food sales may look like versus running a restaurant bar and hanging out with a bunch of rock and roll musicians and
Right.
things that maybe it's time to do something different. So I ended up taking a position as a sales rep at a company called PYA Monarch that doesn't exist anymore. It was owned by the Sara Lee Company, but that was my first step into it. And then after a year or so, they got acquired by Kraft Food Service. And
Which when you hear Kraft, you think of cheese, but they got a lot more than cheese.
Right.
So you were just living where and working a route and going out and selling food to folks, right?
Yeah, living in Hot Springs, working a route there. Later ended up going through a divorce and transferred over to the Little Rock market and did that for a while. And then a territory came open up in north central Arkansas, up around Mountain Home area. And I had grown up on the lakes up there. That's where I learned to water ski and spent my summers. So took an opportunity to move up there and was single parenting a 9-year-old son at the time and just relocated with him up there and kind of started a little bit of a new life up there.
Yeah. And then one day you were working your route and you went to a convenience store and you met someone and you ended up kind of liking each other.
Yeah. There's a real cute girl that kind of ran this store in Bull Shoals, Arkansas. And come to find out, she was kind of going through a different part of her life, too, where she had kind of gone through a divorce. Well, what do you know? It wasn't like the dating scene in north central Arkansas was flourishing. So just happened to be a really cute girl that I met along on the route.
And you've been married how long now?
Be 30 years in May.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking you're going to make it. So
Yeah.
If she was going to throw you out, she'd have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
I guess so. Y'all did a mini Brady Bunch because she has a couple of kids, and TJ was with you, and Savannah was with her mother, and I guess y'all did the life was a little different, and all of a sudden, but you had a blended family, and then after Kraft, is that when you came to Benny
Well,
Keith?
I was up there, and actually, Benny Keith was not in that market, and I knew some people that had been with the company, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to grow into this market here." And I said, "Well, yeah, let's talk." And Kraft was a big deal to me. That's what I'd grown up seeing, all those cheese ads and stuff. And I didn't really know who Benny Keith was very well at the time. And I read about the company. I thought, this may be an opportunity for me. So we talked and ended up taking a sales position with them during that time. I guess Stacy and I got married in May of '94, and I came to work for Benny Keith in August of '94. So
Okay.
a lot of changes that year.
Right, and you're working, instead of a big national conglomerate, you're working for a locally owned or family owned business out of Fort Worth, Texas. That I'm sure at that point in time, Benny Keith operation in Central Arkansas was a fraction of what it is today, of course.
And the food side of our company back then, Kelly, just to put it in perspective, so I'm coming up on 30 years with Benny Keith too. So the sales volume of Benny Keith company-wide for food was at about half of what this division will do this year. So that's how much the Benny Keith Food Company has grown.
Right,
too.
because you've got other markets much larger than Arkansas. So
Right.
you've got the Dallas Fort Worth market. You got
But just the
Houston market.
food scene has grown like that.
Sure.
You asked about the other segments. I can remember my early days in on the sales route and just the early days of this business. There weren't that many restaurants out there. I mean, there was dairy bars and mom and pop cafes, and there might be a steakhouse or a catfish house and things like that, but nothing like the food offerings that are out there.
Oh, I
these
know.
days.
I mean, and those of us who have spent much of our life in Central Arkansas, I think, and have traveled quite a bit, realize that what a really dynamic and large restaurant scene we have compared to most cities our size. And then Benny Keith opportunity continued to present itself, and you and Stacy and moved to New Mexico, right?
Yeah, they had an opportunity for me to. I had come on as a sales rep. Then just after a year, I became a district sales manager, and then I don't know. That was 95ish or so. Did that for 5 or 6 years, I guess. And in 01, offered me an opportunity to go out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, as the number 2 person out there, the assistant general manager, and we jumped on that and spent 6 years out there and absolutely loved New Mexico.
Yeah, and I'm sure you learned that. Well, first off, you learned how to meet new people and establish relationships with folks. But I've of course had this conversation with you several times. But your love of music continued, and you had some pretty good little music shows there at your house. You're in Stacy's house in Albuquerque, right?
Well, with those relationships with Keith and all of Keith's entourage, and going out there trying to build a business and build relationships with those customers, I would throw little house parties and have Keith and those folks. And I mean, the weather in New Mexico is amazing. And we'd set up a little venue in the backyard,
right,
with the Sandia Mountains in the background, and have little hoedowns, and built a lot of relationships with a lot of good New Mexicans in that scene out there.
Right, and we talked about Keith Sykes as a guy that I used to see him and his band when I was in college, and Rusty had known him and seen him then too. And then we met because of Keith Sykes at the Sawmill. Well, Keith Sykes, you look him up. He's a big deal, and he was in Jimmy Buffett's touring band. He's a Coral Reefer. They co-wrote Volcano. He's written songs with John Prine and Roseanne Cash and Jerry Jeff Walker and Guy Clark, and has done his own cool little songwriter showcases that I've been lucky to be part of in Hot Springs that Rusty and Benny Keith are involved with. It's more than we've got time to talk about. But look up Keith Sykes if
plans to release his memoirs.
Yes, plans to release his memoirs. That's exactly right. So you came back and then you got the chance to come back to Little Rock, where your Benny Keith career had started or had been based. And we struck back up our friendship because, in the early days, the internet wasn't really a thing and cell phones weren't really a thing, so it wasn't as easy to keep up with people. But I was a managing partner of Boulevard Wine and Spirits on Maumelle Boulevard, which was just one of my side hustles. It was not my real job, and it wasn't nearly as fun as the side hustle of being the Heaping Spoonful host. But you were back, and you walked into the liquor store of all places. I guess you were just looking for directions or something.
Absolutely.
And we've been friends ever since. So here we are, sitting here today, and sort of your new facility. Yeah, it's five plus years old.
Yeah, this month is 6 years we've been shipping out of here.
Yeah. And so, trucks are leaving here, and they're going to more places than they ever have. Because my memory when you came back was that your footprint was Arkansas, and then I think you all kind of dipped a little bit into maybe North Louisiana or Northwest Mississippi or Eastern Tennessee. Where all does Benny Keith Mid-South deliver now?
So this division is now one of 10.
Okay.
It was one of 6 for a long time, and then we've acquired some over time, and we're now one of 10, and it's considered the Mid-South division. And the footprint most of the time was all of Arkansas and kind of like you said, a little swath of northern Louisiana there, Monroe, Ruston, that area. And then as we were building this facility and then also acquiring some of that Sonic business, they had stores over in Mississippi and Tennessee. So when we were able to build this facility, it gave us the capability to expand our footprint. So now we are basically from roughly that Jackson, Vicksburg, Mississippi area, mid-Mississippi, all the way up, cover the whole northern half of Mississippi, over to Tupelo, Starkville, even over to Muscle Shoals and Florence, Alabama. And then we do western Tennessee and do Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, and we currently ship into Nashville, Tennessee 4 days a week. I don't have salespeople there, but we ship national accounts over to Nashville 4 days a week now. So, yeah, our footprint's a lot bigger and a lot more moving parts.
Yeah, and again, I think people that just think about putting up cans of something in a truck and taking it somewhere, the logistics side of how you get the trucks moving around and as efficiently as possible is probably another whole podcast right there. So another thing, again, that I know is important to you personally and to Benny Keith is being a good corporate citizen. You all have been very visible in the community, and I don't know that your competitors necessarily have been. and you've supported many worthy nonprofits. Talk about why that's important to you, why it's important to the company, why it's important to the folks you work with here in North Little Rock.
Yeah, so our company as a whole has always had a very philanthropic heart, and me personally as well, through some things that have happened in my life. And so I wanted to do that where I could, and where made sense with the company. And one thing with us being B2B, business to business, we don't necessarily have a need for a retail brand such as a department store or a bank or something like that, because we're wholesalers. But we do have a responsibility to be good community citizens and support the communities that we work in, and so back to that culture of the Howland family and Benny Keith Company, just kind of supported that role. So we ran with it, and it did kind of help identify us. And I say this often is we touch a lot of people out there that may not buy from us directly, but they probably dine out. They probably know somebody in a restaurant. And all I say is I just hope they say nice things behind our backs. So I hope that they, say, where do you get your food? Do you know those folks at Benny Keith? They seem to do a lot in the community. So it's a very soft value that you don't know how you return on it, but I can tell you it feels like we return quite well on it. So, and
it also just qualifies as the right thing to do when you can do it. And again, you have supportive, bosses and owners that I know like the warm feelings that everybody gets from doing good things for, and again, that goes from providing food for nonprofit events to making sure that, people who may not have access to food on a regular basis get it. And I know that your wife volunteers at a food pantry. So, it's just trying to do right by the community. So,
and Kelly, I know you're going to wrap this up real quick, but if I could just say a couple of things. First of all, this has been a great run for 4 years, and just what a good time it was. But I just would like to thank the customers and the friends that have come out and to sit down at the studio for this podcast, because it's been entertaining to me. And I've got a lot of friends that follow the podcast, and I see them out in public. They go, man, that was a great story. This was a great story, or whatever. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's sat in this chair and participated in this podcast before, and then obviously to yourself.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a great run for you. It's been a great run for Benny Keith Mid-South, and those things will continue on. Been a great run, as you said, for Heaping Spoonful, more than 4 years and almost 100 episodes. And, as I've wound down each of these episodes, I've reminded listeners that, hey, we post new episodes the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and please keep an eye out for those and go back and check out the ones you've missed. But today there's a different ending. I still encourage all of you to listen to Heaping Spoonful episodes you've missed, but this time I won't be talking about hosting new episodes, because this podcast series has gone full circle. It started with an idea from Rusty Mathis, started with a name from Rusty Mathis, and ended up with an interview with Rusty. So all good things got to come to an end, and so it goes with Heaping Spoonful. So this will be the last episode of this series. We thank everybody for your loyalty, and we hope you've enjoyed listening to these podcasts as much as we have enjoyed putting them together and bringing them to you. So thanks again, Rusty. We wish all of you out there a great 2024 and beyond. Thanks, and have a good day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.